smell really nice coming in here today.
Yeah.
I appreciate your help with the podcast this week.
Oh, like organizing?
Yeah, just helping me stay on top of shit.
Yeah.
Lots going on, so
Busy
it's
right now.
very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do an AMA today.
What does that mean, Eric?
And ask me anything.
Yeah.
And ask me anything.
Yeah,
So-
we got a lot of questions and random, so we like to throw this out every now and then.
Yeah. So before we do this, I have
Yeah.
a comment.
Okay.
I want to make a comment.
Yeah.
I decided, based on some of our last videos we posted and the last episode that we did, people are bugging me about this like politics and hockey thing and like money and all this. It's bugging me because the same thing we've said 3 times, like, it doesn't happen a lot. And people just don't seem willing to accept that. But it seems like everybody still has the same story about politics this, politics that. And I can't think of one time playing where there was a kid I played with who absolutely deserved to make the next level and move on, and they didn't. I can't think of one example. So I want to tell a little story. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it in or not yet, but we'll see. So this is an example for me. This would be like my I got screwed story. Okay? So when I was playing junior, I was in my what would be like my commitment year for
Yeah.
NCAA. So I was 18.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. So the year before, had a good year. Had like 30-some goals, 90-some penalty minutes. Really good year. And I was getting a lot of attention from schools.
Yeah.
Cool.
As I remember.
The next year, or going into the next year, my current coach and the ownership of the team had a falling out. That coach leaves, goes to a different team. We bring in a new coach. The new coach and the owner decide that they're going to try to make our team a super team. And they started buying players from other junior teams, which isn't just my subjective what I thought was going on. I know that that's what happened. And they made rules in our league afterwards because of this happening. So what happened was they brought over a bunch of superstars from other teams.
Older.
Yeah, older,
Yeah.
couple years older. Also had really good years the year before. And this coach, it was like these were his guys now,
Yeah.
right?
So he's going with the devil he knows
Exactly. So
instead of the devil he doesn't.
that's right. So these guys come over to our team, and who gets the shaft? I get the shaft. So now my opportunity is not gone, but very diminished. So I was playing with like my line mates that we had a good flow going. Our team wasn't great. We were like a 500 team at the time that they came here, and we'd only played like 14 games or whatever. And the start to this was my commitment year was hot. So I had like 20 something points in the first 14 games, and like everything was good, going on track. Our team wasn't the best, but whatever. So they come in, opportunity's basically gone. And as an 18-year-old, just like everyone else that asked us questions, I was all butthurt about it, for sure. So ended up having a conversation with the coach, and that didn't go so well. And then basically asking, because I was a captain on that team at the time, I was kind of asking, like, what are you guys like doing? You're like kind of disrupting the team, and guys that have been here for the last 2 years, because we had gone to the finals the year before, are now like not playing. So like you're getting pushed, forwards are getting pushed and whatever. And so as the captain, I was just like, what is going on, kind of thing. And
You're kind of asking for the room.
asking on behalf of the room.
And a little bit personal.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely driven by like my own selfishness of like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely could cloak it in the for the room thing, which is the way that I approached it, so that I'm not just coming off as totally selfish. This is that a little bit of pretend team guy that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
I was a little bit of still like me first.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyways, that didn't go so well. And then I asked for a trade, and they wouldn't trade me. So for the next 3 months, I didn't get to play, and they didn't trade me. So finally, by the trade deadline, 3 months had passed. This is my commitment year when I'm supposed to be getting scouted D1 schools, and now I'm not playing for 3 months. They decided to trade me to a team in another conference and putting they put trade clauses in my deal that I couldn't be traded back home to anyone in our conference. So I had to move away to another team, place I didn't know, people I didn't know, bill it for the first time. All those away from hockey factors I had to deal with after not playing for 3 months. So I was getting emails from NCAA schools. My dad was getting them actually, where they were asking if I still played hockey or if I quit in my commitment year. Okay. So this is like the best that for me in my life I could come up with as a like I legit got screwed. Like there was nothing I could do here, and they just screwed me. Like that's one way that I could take that story, and I could make an argument. But when I went to my new team, I still had another year and a half of junior to play, and I went there and I didn't perform as well as I needed to perform, and then I didn't end up the scholarship opportunities that I had kind of disintegrated by that time because I'd been off for so long and I didn't get them back. So is it because of that situation that happened, or is it because I didn't perform well when I needed to perform? And I could lean towards either side, but at the end of the day, I had an opportunity to perform after that and I didn't the way that I needed
100%.
to. So the reason I want to tell that
Like
story.
you're, yeah. Okay. I was going to say something, but I
No,
don't
go
need
ahead.
to. No, I was going to say like that happens with a guy in the NHL.
Mhm.
You know, you'll see this all the time. He comes in and he starts making his mark, and then he falls off, right? And then it's up to him to get his game back.
Mhm.
And there are situations where people like someone else better and all that stuff, but it's up to you to make sure that you're outplaying who you
Right.
have to outplay.
Yeah.
Like bottom line.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like your window of opportunity isn't I had scholarships, now they're gone. It's you had scholarships. There obviously you were doing something very, very well. You have to get your game back up to that level. And that's the thing with hockey is it's that's why I always say it's so hard because you don't get to be good once. No one remembers you what you did yesterday. That's over. You know, like I say to a lot of the kids that I train, it's like yeah. Like my son had in the playoffs like some really really good games, and it's like you can't have one good game. You have to have all of them.
All good
Or
games. Yeah.
like we said when we talked about in a podcast not too long ago, it was like you can have that game that's like the exceptional game, and then you could have a stinker once in a while, but most of the time you have to play your game, and that's that 50% of the time you're going to be the player that you are, and that and the scouts and all that they do see it.
Yep. So when I look back on it now, and especially now because I work with players closely and I see the kinds of players that are getting scholarships and committing, I honestly think I was good enough to get that. I think if a couple different bounces, maybe I get that. And the fact that it didn't happen though doesn't mean that I got screwed by the hockey world and there was nothing I could do about it and this is bullshit and whatever, because I had an opportunity after that and I didn't make the most of it to get my game back, to your point. So I just find like and what I guess what my point was with that is that I was maybe one of those fringe guys where it's like I'm almost there, maybe not, maybe like
Yeah, I
in
get
that
what you're saying. I
in
get
that
what you're saying.
yeah, like in that bubble. Like
Yeah.
if you're a kid, maybe people know this. If you're trying out for AAA and you're on the bubble, it's like you're almost, and you just need a little something to push you over, or you do a little something not so well, and now you're out. And maybe I was in the position where I was a bubble kind of guy, and I was on my track of doing what I needed to do to push myself over. Then whatever happened, and then I never got back to that spot. And I feel like it's those bubble kids, whether like you're one of those fringe guys that maybe you're almost good enough, maybe you're not. Those are the guys that complain a lot about I got screwed this or that, or people not as good as them. Those are the people that are making those comments, and it's just bugging me because I'm reading a lot of comments and people sharing their opinion. And I knew a guy who knew a guy, or I've seen it so much, but nobody defines what it means. This happens all the time. What does all the time mean? It happens with every team. How? Where? How?
It's like, but it's like in life, like if you do something well every day, it's just you do something well every day. If you do something negative, that sticks out like a sore thumb, and that's what people talk about, right? So when the one incident happens where it is politics or it is getting screwed or the bullshit of the business, that's the one that sticks out like a sore thumb. Not the one that, oh yeah, like, okay, so like you said in the last podcast, it was let's use a number that 15 one round in the CHL, every one pick in every round, which is not the case, but it would be 15 picks that were
The bot or whatever.
yeah, they don't. No one looks at the other 19 picks and say, okay, that was right.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and then sorry.
No, I was going to say one more thing about that. So there was a NHLer that made a comment yesterday on that. He said he wasn't being negative at all. He was just saying, I just feel, he goes, this is true, but I just feel bad for the 15 kids, let's say, in that draft that should have been drafted over someone that maybe a favor or whatever. Right, you saw that, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I agree with that. Like
that's what I said to him. I responded.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Is like because that's what really bothered me about that is seeing someone that shouldn't have been drafted, but his the dad was involved with the team a little bit, and just do my kid a favor. Well, I've seen just in our space, kids that were much better than him that didn't get drafted in the 13th round, that have worked hard and they didn't ask for any favors, that didn't get their name picked. And at the end of the day, does it matter as far as the hockey side goes? No, but it would have been something for that kid to say, I worked hard. I was a 13th round pick, so at least I got drafted. Whereas the other kid didn't do it. And I do agree with that 100%. But, that's never going to change, I don't think.
And we're not, like somebody else had said, like, we're not like, I can't, or somebody said something like this the first time I've disagreed, like you're rationalizing, and we're not rationalizing. We're not making excuses for the like bad behavior or when politics actually happens or when we're acknowledging that it happens and we're saying it's not good and we don't like it.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
all of that is what we agree, but it's just the degree. People talk about it like it happens all the time, and it happened to me, and it happened to everybody, man.
Yeah.
And
well, you could take every year, you could take your own kid, you could take, I could say that with my own kid at certain times and say, well, yeah, but, and it's very true. But like my answer to my kid is, do something more, do something different, make yourself stand out. You have time. It's not, and I don't complain, that. And I could say, go back to my thing and say, yeah, but, and it's like, yeah, but Andy, you could have done this, or this. And that's hindsight though. But there's things that you can do, and sometimes you're just not good enough, and that's the reality too, right? Sometimes just someone's better than you.
And that's my thing is kind of just pointing out again to people is just take some ownership of your own situations, because you can find things to blame, man. You can find things to blame. And like that situation that happened to me, I could look back at that and be bitter because maybe it cost me. Maybe it did. It could have. But I had another chance after for it to not cost me anymore, which I didn't capitalize on. So which thing do I blame now? I can either choose to blame this thing and say it was someone else's fault and there was nothing that I could do and I got screwed. Or I could say, yeah, what about all the other time I got to play and didn't make enough of an impact for it to get me where I wanted to go? I'm just going to ignore all that and only focus on a 3-month stretch of my 4-year junior career. And then if I think about back to my minor hockey thing, I can pick out times where I had a goof coach or I had people that were getting more opportunity that maybe didn't deserve it because there was buddies on teams and all that. But there's enough to go around even with that kind of thing happening.
Yeah. Well, as you're talking about this, it was pretty refreshing. So one of our local kids that trains here sometimes, not all the time, but he was first year in the OHL as a 17-year-old. And he was having a pretty good year. Like a lot of the people that I know in the NHL were saying, hey, this kid, eh? Like, tell me about him. So, I was just saying, good kid, can play, blah, 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 blah. And rookie, right? And getting lots of ice. So, anyways, he was having a good year. And he got a pretty serious injury, right? So it was like, man, it was like right at the time of the top prospects and whatever. And he came back like just at the end of the year. And so I saw him up when Charlie was playing in the same. I don't want to say his name, right? Charlie was playing and up where this kid plays. So he came over to see me and we're talked. And his attitude, man, his attitude was awesome. He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm going to get through this, and then I might be able to play on U18s and stuff like that. And his attitude was like, it wasn't like poor me, it was my draft year. Now it screwed my chances. His attitude was totally opposite. It was, I'm going to get back. I'm going to get my 4 games in, and I know I got to play well, and I'm going to have a chance to play at the U18s, the World Championship U18s, and he knows there's going to be people scouting him, and I can guarantee you that even if he maybe doesn't have his best, or there's doubt in his mind, or not doubt in the scouts' minds or stuff, that he'll come back next year, and he'll prove them wrong or prove them right or whatever. But there's the bottom line is what I'm saying is there's not a quit in his attitude. It's not like I got screwed with a cheap shot and I missed 3 months or 2 months of hockey. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get back, and he's been working hard and just so excited to get back. So that was like, that's the opposite of what an injury is. Maybe a different thing than politics, but I mean it's the attitude. It's like, okay, there's still one incident doesn't change everything.
Yeah, and it comes back
and
to
it can change things, but it's how you respond, right? It's not what happens to you, it's how you handle it when it happens. That's the key.
Yeah, and it comes back to the controllables thing, man. Like, and it's the same whether it's you're dealing with your injury thing or you want to blame other people. It's like you can only control, like, you want to focus on the 5% that you can't control. That's what you want to focus on, and I feel like that's what is going on. You know, you get hurt or you get screwed. You're focusing on the tiny proportion that you cannot control rather than focusing on the things that you can control. In this example, when we're talking about, politics and favors and money and these types of things, and it's just irritating, and it does you no good to think this. It does absolutely no good to you or your kids or whoever you're influencing if you're spewing this attitude to them. And that doesn't mean you're making excuses or agreeing with the problem. It's just you're taking a perspective that is actually beneficial and helpful to your life, as opposed to complaining and bitching and being bitter and spreading negativity and rumors and false. It's just irritating to constantly read and hear and listen to people tell their personal story.
Yeah. And so, the flip side of that is that we got to, if you zoom out a little bit and just not focus on just your hockey, when you think about life, right? So I run a business, right? I've had a business for almost 25 years now. And in my business, there were times, and there always will be times, where it feels like, why would you go and train with that guy when I'm better?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, but the thing is like, then be better. Then do something better. So maybe your marketing isn't very good. Maybe the way you're approaching people isn't very good. Maybe the way you're approaching your business could be better and stuff like that. So I can't sit here and say, oh, like, this life is just a bunch of bullshit, because if you do that, if you have that attitude or that carry on that way, then you don't get to recover. You don't get to make money. You don't get to have a business. You lose it, right? So like that's where you want to take, again, what we always talk about is like hockey. Even if you're really good at hockey and you play some years in the NHL, life ends, and you want to make sure at the end of the day that you've taken the principles from hockey and applied it to life. So if your principles of hockey are, I got screwed, politics, and just like the negative, and I don't want to beat up the negative stuff, but if that's your attitude, then what do you think is going to happen when you are a sales, like say you got a nice big sales job, and it actually takes, I gotta get you to choose me over anybody else. It's not politics. But let's just say it is politics. You want to buy from your brother, or you're a friend of yours. But if I just am better at selling a product, or show you that this is just much better, that's my job to do that, right? It's not like, oh, well, I guess I don't have a chance here, right? So you can't blame all the time. And it's. I know it sounds like we're so smart, and like I understand the feelings when someone feels like there's a little bit of politics, but like, try your best to look at it from a different lens.
And it's not that I'm not, like, great point, because I'm not sitting here saying I never blame anything either. I'm not saying that I never do that. It's like, we do that. You can find the thing to blame, and I can go through a stretch of where I'm having a poopy pants party, and I'm saying like, yep, this is bullshit. I do the same thing as everybody else. I'm not saying that we don't do this and we're just better because we don't do this. We do it too. It's a hard thing to get away from because it's just a human thing, but it doesn't help you. So you got to be able to spin yourself out of that mindset, So I just want to touch on that quickly.
Well, you could talk about this for a long time.
Yeah, man, because it's just it does you no good, and it just seems like everybody wants to talk, and it excuses not doing the work, which is what
But
bothers me.
the other thing that I think, like, so the one NHLer that said that, it's like, if you look at the way he played, this guy played hard, right? Hard. Like, so my point is, hockey is hard, hard. If you're going to make it to whatever level that you want to make it, it's just not as simple as just be a good hockey player, right? Like, I was just listening to someone talk about Alexei Kovalev, right? This is maybe a different tangent, but they said he was the best. Like, he was like no one better. But he said he didn't have the heart because his attitude was, um, if I score 2, then they want 3. If I score 3, they want 4. So he took his effort level, and his give a shit meter was low. He was just good enough to play, which he had an unbelievable career, but could have been better. My point of that is, like, hockey is hard for the best of the best, right? So, like, the NHL guy that made the comment, it was like, I just feel bad for the other kids. It's like, yeah, but you were a guy that he wasn't necessarily the most talented, but man, did this guy play hard, and he created something that other people weren't willing to do, right?
Yeah, it didn't
So
affect you.
he recognized how hard it is. Okay, I'm going to be this guy, right? So that's that. So it's like, just try to find a way to be better if it's something that you really want, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to Colgate University, they don't want the kid that buckles or the family that buckles at every excuse. They want the kid that perseveres through tough times. So
Yeah, and I know. I mean, we're gonna keep getting pushback on it, anyways.
oh yeah,
but
for sure.
if
Hey, here's the thing. In hockey, like, I'm just gonna keep it in hockey. If you don't like it, you're not gonna last very long. It's hard, man. That's what I'm saying. It's just a tough place to be. The business of it is one thing. The game itself is another thing, and the competition is crazy. So if you don't have skin like a rhinoceros, good luck.
Yeah. So if we can change one person's perspective on that, I'll call this segment of rant a win.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do some questions. So
before we do the question,
okay,
I just want one comment.
Sure.
And the comment is, this is for the we get a lot of questions, or like back end questions in our DMs or whatever, about female hockey, right? About like, what do I do? Should I move? Should I do this? And I don't want to say that we're ignoring the female hockey players. So that's number one. We're not ignoring you. But for us, it's like, if you ask me questions about goalies, I just don't have the expertise. So if I start spewing off about goalies, it's like, you don't listen to this podcast, because I can't give you real goaltender advice, except for like the basics. Like, we say that the general things, like work hard, find a good trainer, all these kind of things. And so when it comes to the girls' hockey, it's like, should I move? Like, I just don't know the ins and outs of female hockey, and I don't know the ins and outs, especially in the States. So when it comes to the real details of what your moves are, like, I don't know what girls' spring hockey looks like. I just don't know. So it's not that I don't want to give the advice of that. And the male hockey is my domain. This is who I work with, and I understand it inside out. That's why I feel very comfortable talking about it. But what I can say for the female hockey players is, when it comes to hockey, it's all the same thing. It's the same advice I would give a guy trying to play in the NHL. And then, so some questions are stuff like, do you think girls should be able to coach because they do have some expertise and stuff like that? And it's like, listen, this is what I would say to this all the time, is like, if you're qualified and you're good enough to do it, then why not, right? But after that, it's like, I don't want to, I can't give you advice on the female hockey experience, because I just don't know.
Yeah, the thing that I think is the separator is all of the stuff that crosses over between guys and girls. It's like, our answers are already here, and then when we get into the like nuance of working with female athletes, or how we train them, or how whatever, like you said, we just don't know. Like, so those small details, we just don't know the answer to those small things, and the things that are mostly the same, the answers are going to be mostly the same. So I think that's kind of where the line is. So it's not like we're ignoring the issue necessarily. It's just that we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Let's do some questions. So people that are members, if you want to write in some questions, I'm going to send an email out to those member people actually to get some questions from them. So if you're not a member and you want to become one, that's a good idea because then you get to talk to Uncle Andy. You can do a consult. We do those video calls, which are cool. Been getting a good bunch of those. And then while I'm on the topic, the store stuff is up too. More orders, getting more orders. So I'm running around making sure you guys get your stuff. So if you want any of that, the store is open online. And then our usual leave a review on the podcast and share it and all that stuff. And then you'll get in touch with us that way, which is cool.
Yeah.
So you picked out, what, 13 here?
Yeah.
You picked these ones out too. So these are
they were questions,
picks.
right? They were sitting there, and we got a lot of the same, but these were a little bit of the same and different.
Yeah. So we'll try to be short, but maybe not because we're not really good at that. Yeah. So I'll start with the first one here.
Yeah.
This is from Tucker. Is that what that means?
Yeah, that means it's from Tucker.
So Tucker, here's your question. Is it worth it to change positions to make your team better?
Would you like me to answer that?
I would like you to answer that.
Yeah, it's worth it, man. Here's the thing. I'll go last year with the Guelph Storm. I said this before. We had like three of our top Ds out. I think it was three of our top D, and the guys were short. And Matthew Pappas was asked to go play D, and he did an unbelievable job. And I believe he did the exact same thing this year.
He did.
Yeah, with the Owen Sound, and he got a lot of compliments on his game. So, number one, if your team needs something, you should be willing to do whatever it takes. And maybe if you don't want to be a goalie, I understand. But that's why it's important though. Like when we talked about this, to understand the game, to understand different positions, and when you're young, to play all positions, so you have a healthy respect for what everybody's job is to do, and to understand like, okay, this might be something that you enjoy anyways, and then you never know when your team may need you to do something at another position. So I think it's great. The one thing that comes to my mind is the last piece of that question is change position to make your team better. And I said, I think that is probably the number one thing that I teach most players is to make the people around you better and team first mentality.
That's how Tucker asked the question. Like
that's exactly how it is.
Good for you, Tucker.
I might have shortened like
yeah.
I took out a couple consonants.
Yeah. He said to make your team better though.
To make your team better.
Good.
Yeah.
Good
that's
mindset.
how we said it.
Good mindset on Tucker.
100%. So my answer to that would be absolutely. You do whatever you can do for your team, and you become a more valuable person. And just in the long run, it's going to make you a better hockey player. The other thing is I don't know the answer to this, but I don't know how old Tucker is. So he might be 6. He probably didn't type when he was 6, but but he might be 6. He might be 18. I don't know. But not even depending. It's not going to ruin your career if you're a 12-year-old top scoring player on your team and they ask you to play D for a game or 2 or 3 or for a season.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Might even be good for you.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, and then just like from a real close, very personal experience is that was my son. So he grew up obviously with Aaron Ekblad and Ryan Wilson and Mike Weber around, and a lot of D, and he always heard me speaking about how much I like working with D. So when he was a little boy, when he wanted to play hockey, they asked him, like he was a forward at first, but they asked if he would play D. And he's like, yeah, I'll play D. Like he actually wanted to. So he played his first 6 years of hockey as a defenseman, right? And then when he got to, I think it was minor Bantam or major Pee Wee, they asked him because they had a lot of D and they were kind of like, felt like maybe he would be a good forward. They asked him, would you be interested if we gave you the opportunity to play forward? And they presented it nice to him, right? Like, if we think he could be very, very valuable. He said, yeah, I'll do that. So he trained really hard in the summer in his mind, his little kid mind, to be a good forward. And that's what he is now. And then, so the advantage of that now is that if they ever had to throw a guy back on D, he's done it right? So yeah, it's very good. So but to make your team better, yeah, 100%. That's 100% what you do.
Yeah, I like that.
Jump at those answers. And what do you think your coach thinks of you? Instead of giving resistance, and you say, "Yep, I'll do it."
Yeah.
That's a good attitude.
Yeah, and that goes back to a few episodes ago. We're covering kind of the foundations of each of the positions again.
Yep.
That's like to your point you said at the start. There is it's good to understand, have a grasp of everything because it helps all other positions. Knowing how a defenseman thinks helps you as a forward, vice versa, and all that. Next question. Oh, this is loaded.
Yeah, it's okay though.
College or CHL route?
Right.
That's the question.
Well, CHL.
Yeah.
That's the question. College or CHL route?
Yeah. That's the question.
It depends on the person. No, it doesn't even depend on. How do I say this? Because there was actually, I read one comment and they said, like, if you had an opportunity to get a college scholarship, take it. There's no questions, and I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. There's so many benefits to both. So I know for me, like I told you, like a lot of the colleges I did a few visits when I was very young, and I thought it was freaking awesome, and it is. But I had no interest. Number one, school. That was a bad word to me. I didn't care enough about school and the environment of it. I like, even when I took some of my teams to the colleges, it's like the facilities are incredible, the program's incredible, the way you get to train and all that kind of stuff is awesome. It's incredible, but it wasn't for me. I didn't like the college environment in any way, shape, or form. I didn't like, how a lot of people say they got the bands and in the one side. Like went to Notre Dame a couple times and they have a band playing and stuff, and I looked at that and I went, ugh, ugh. Right, where other people will say this is the best thing ever. Like, that's the atmosphere I want to have, and that's cool. That's cool. So that's one indicator of which way you might lean when you're younger. From a developmental standpoint, both are great. And to say like it's not fair to say like the CHL is better because it's a pro development league and blah blah blah. Like, it's very true, but like not all teams are created equal, and that's the exact same thing as the NCAA. Not all teams are created equal. Like, there's better experiences sometimes, and there's worse experiences. So now, just as far as hockey goes, it's like, what do you want to do? Like, if you're a kid, and I'm not saying don't go to college if you've matured early and but if you've got a big hairy guy and you're physically ready to go at 16 years old and you got to wait a couple years to go to college and stuff like that might influence your decision a little bit too, right? Because you're just ready to play at a high level. So as far as the hockey goes, it doesn't actually matter. They're both excellent, and if someone like if someone said, "Here we go, I got these offers," I'd say, like, you have to take the one that you feel very happy with. So so I'll go back and say, okay, so someone that says, well, if you get a college scholarship, then you have to take it. Like, there's no questions. It's like, okay, let me argue that. If you play in the CHL, for every year that you play, you get your school paid for at at your university, books, tuition, all that kind of stuff paid for. So, and then then there's opportunities, like if you sign, there's some packages, obviously the higher draft pick you are, that if you play one game, you get X amount of years paid for. Done deal. So at the end of the day, if you don't make the National Hockey League at 20 years old, or you don't get drafted and it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, now you have school. So what's the problem? What's the problem? And you can still play hockey for a university, which is incredibly good hockey. So what's the problem? Right? If you go to college, then you get your school and hockey paid for as well. Now, the risk you take, I guess, would be if you are not like a top guy, or in your case, where let's say you made the decision, no, I'm going to go get a scholarship. I don't want to play for the Windsor Spitfires, right? And then you have that 1 year that you were talking about earlier, where it was like kind of took you off the map a little bit. That opportunity actually could be gone if you don't do something about it. So, like, so that's what I'd say about that. But as far as developing, like, listen, the OH or the CHL, the programs are incredible for the most part. And like I said before, not everyone's the exact same thing, but every team has an education consultant. They have fitness, like off the charts fitness programs. They have mental health. They have great coach. Like the coaching is great. You're practicing every day. It's all good, man. So there's and then you're playing a ton of games, right? And that's the same thing in NCAA. You get great programs. So
Yeah, I think
it's not a problem.
for me, it's the same shit, different pile. I think it just comes down to from the hockey perspective, it's the same shit. It's like if you want to go play at the next level, make the NHL, it's really not that different. Like I know CHL produces a little more, a little bit more by the numbers, but at the same, it's same shit. So really, it comes down to the environment question. Are you a school guy? If you're not for you. If you like schedule, regiment, and that was me. I loved that. I love school. I love the environment. I love the campus. I love the buildings. I love the student life. I love all that. So if you don't like that, then it's not going to be for you, man. If you want to, progress a little bit earlier, you're ready a little bit earlier, and you want a little bit more freedom with how you're doing things. CHL, that's where you're going to get that. So it's really just comes down to, I think, to environment more than anything.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, and in the colleges, like I think it's awesome. Like it's incredible. You get some really really good training out of it, right? So you don't play quite as many games, and the games are awesome. Like they're great hockey players. But I think the real benefit there is that you get a lot more gym time and fitness time, and you eat, like you go down to the cafeterias and you got, like, what do they call it, carte blanche? Go down there and eat as often as you want.
Yeah.
That's a benefit. Whereas in the CHL, you could be living in a place where you just go, my God, or
yeah,
like,
you have to cook,
or the billets you're waiting for them to get home, or you don't feel like going to the fridge. Like there's all those things. Like the moving away thing for some people might be a tough thing. But hey, you can go to college too, and you can just say, oh, and there's the bar.
Mm-hmm. Seriously,
there's no moms and dads around.
Yeah,
so like,
exactly.
But it's all good, man. Either way, there's no wrong answer.
I'm gonna go out of order a little bit here. These are good questions, man.
They're good questions.
Good picks. I like this one. What kind of family income do you need? What kind of family income do you need to have? Be honest. So I'm assuming this is saying to play hockey, to play at a high level of hockey, to get somewhere in hockey.
Yeah,
is that kind of the question?
I'm gonna assume it's
in that ballpark.
I'm gonna assume to play like at the high level, like I would say a AAA.
Okay.
Yeah, and you need money. You need money. You need some resources because it's different in different places, right? So if you're looking here in our area of Ontario, you're looking at your registrations, your equipment. So that's your sticks and your skates are going to cost you. There's a few grand right there. Your registration is going to be a few to $5,000. So you're looking at, there's about 8. Then you got to go hotels and your travel, like gas in the car. And I would say that you're looking at a minimum of $12,000.
I was gonna say 10 to 15. Yeah,
like it's there. Like there's a lot of incidentals that you don't even think about. We refuse to actually mark it down because it'll depress you. It's a lot of money. It's 10 to 15. Now, if you live in Los Angeles or Dallas or like a little bit more remote places in the United States of America, then a lot of those AAA teams travel across the country almost every weekend to go to these showcase tournaments. So now I don't even know how to calculate that.
I don't know the difference in like Toronto too, or even when you coach in Bell Tire, like what
it was because
it would be more than here, I would imagine.
Yeah, like I said, it's different. I'm going to say it's still going to be $10,000 to $15,000 for sure. Like for sure,
minimum,
and then build from there because like in Detroit, that was a little bit of it was like a hockey hub, so a lot of the showcases were in that area.
Oh yeah, true.
So they would play, within the Detroit area, which was very very good hockey. I think, in my opinion, is one of the best in North America. A lot of good hockey players come out of those programs, like a lot. And most of the showcases were in the Detroit. So you would get, you'd have to go to the East Coast once maybe twice a year, and we had a Midwest, like a Chicago or the one year we went to St. Louis, Minnesota, but it wasn't that far. But it adds up, right? You still, if you fly anywhere, that starts adding up, hotels and all that stuff, food. So, and then they have ice fees on top of the registration, but the sponsorships are pretty good. And then and then so, but it's 10 to 15 for sure.
Those are the only couple things I'll throw on that is, I mentioned this I think last podcast, is there's unnecessary expenses that some people think are necessary that make it more expensive. So that's one thing, whether it's the type of equipment you buy or the selection of where the tournaments are going to be, because some teams decide those together. So there's those types of things. And then, as you just said, the sponsorships, like there's opportunities that a lot of teams have for you to do fundraising kind of stuff, which most of the time I don't think it was any like real substantial amount, but it's one of those things, how much work you put in is how much you'll get out in terms of fundraising stuff. And then I also remember in certain situations, like some kids their parents could not afford it. And then other people on the team that had a little bit more money would like sponsor those kids to play. So there's ways around it too. So it doesn't have to be inaccessible necessarily. There's ways that you can kind of work with it, but it is like ridiculous. So it's definitely a little bit of a money pit.
Listen, I don't know how we would do it if we actually had 2 to 3 kids playing AAA hockey. I actually don't know how you'd do it financially and just splitting up your time. But you're looking at 10 to 15 grand no matter what, unfortunately. But the ice costs are just like, number one, so high. And the things like your sticks and skates, it's like, man, I used to watch my kid break sticks and go, dude, like,
you're killing me.
We have one. There was one kid on Charlie's team that he would break sticks, legitimately shooting pucks. So he'd take clappers, and it was almost like every time he was on the ice, you'd just see $300 disintegrate. Unbelievable.
Yeah, nuts. Let's see this one. My 7-year-old son made a AAA team. Do you think it's stretching it at 7 years old to play for the AAA team as well as a hometown club team?
Yeah. That's a person from Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, I didn't know if I wanted to say the place, but I guess right. Massachusetts is a pretty big place, so I feel like you won't find the guy.
Yeah. There might be more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 7 years old, that's number one. Number two, made AAA team. Number three is, can he play for his club team as well? Is it too much for him? So, number one, I don't know if you burn a kid. Like, if the kid is wanting to play every single minute of the day of hockey, I don't think you're going to burn him out, or I don't think that's what you would call burnout. But I'm just saying from a logistically, it's like, to manage 2 teams is probably pretty difficult because the AAA schedule is pretty demanding, and that's that. I mean, you're practicing more than your club team would. You're traveling a lot more, and then the other side of it is just to be fair to your club team, or even your AAA team, would be commit yourself to one and do it excellent and have some downtime. So, having said that, my kid was younger, and the AAA coach was like, "I know you don't want to play AAA yet. Like how come?" I said, "Just let's not talk about it because he's not ready for it, and I don't want to sound like I'm arrogant, and I don't want to sound like I'm a know-it-all. I don't want to sound like whatever." I said, "We're good, and when he chooses to play AAA, he'll make that move." He goes, "Well, he can AP with us. He can just come out and practice all the time, and he can come up to some games." And it's like, the problem with that, like, this is me as a dad, the problem with that is, because I've seen this, is because he was playing, we would call it A hockey, travel A hockey. The problem with that is that he's dedicated to his team. And I know in your mind, coach, that you think that that's not a big deal, but to me it's a big deal because that's his team, and I want him to focus on his team and his team only, because I know what happens is once you go up with the AAA guys, then you start getting an attitude when you come back to your team. It's like, wow, this isn't very good. You know what I mean? It was
very interesting.
Yeah, okay, I can't wait to go practice with a better team or go play a game against better hockey. I want him to focus and be the leader on his team and be happy about everything he's got. So when he does make the jump, he can do the same thing with that team.
So let me just with 2 things on that. So I was talking to a scout the other day, and he was talking about one of the like highest rated prospects for the draft coming up this year. And he said exactly what you said. He said he looks like he's either lazy or he has a little bit of an attitude because he played up a year last year and had a good year, and he was hoping that certain things were going to happen for him that didn't happen. And so he's either a little bit pouty or he's a little bit lazy
Or
and
disinterested.
yeah, so he's like, it's hard to tell, but that's kind of the word around right now with the scouts about this player. And it's exactly to your point. It's like he got a little taste of something better, and then because you're a kid, you come back and now you're the celebrity. You know, you're the guy that is APing with the AAA team. So you come back and now maybe you're a little too good for your A team.
Well, and
you
as
know?
a kid, it's the little things. It's like, oh wow, their jerseys are better, or it's cooler colors, or they all got the same bags and all these different things. And it's like those are the little things, the little status things, right?
Yeah, and then just another thing I wanted to touch on with this one is I got a message from somebody else. Their kid is in their draft year this year, and this mom sent me a whole bunch of questions about the draft process because I guess the kids had some interviews, and she's like, well, I've seen rankings, he's been like ranked from 25 to 80 or whatever, and like question. And so I went through and I answered the questions that she asked because you want to know the answers. If I just say, hey, don't worry about it, that's not a great answer. So I answered the questions, and then at the end I said the same thing, is like, just, it's easy to get caught up. It's easy to listen to the noise. It's easy to listen to the people around you, and don't think you have to do everything all the time. And that's kind of what I would say for people that are thinking, if which I'm not saying this question is, but if it's about the development, like getting them the most opportunity, whatever, it's like, you don't have to do everything all the time, man. The kids are going to develop. You made the point last episode about you break your arm and you're out for 6 months. You come back in 2 weeks and you're fine. It comes back quick. You're not going to lose anything. You're not missing out. And a lot of things change over the years. So don't try not to get caught up in the need to always be doing something.
Yeah, and then there's just a side tangent on that, like just for the parents themselves that ask the question about will they burn them out 7 years old and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, you probably won't burn him out as a hockey player if he really wants to, but as a parent now, it's like you're gonna burn yourself out. Unless you like that lifestyle of just running around in your car, driving around in your car from rink to rink and shoving food down his throat every opportunity you can, because you can't actually sit down and have a meal and have a life. Like, that would be something that I would really pay attention to, but I'm not you. And a lot of people do that and they're fine with it, so that's cool. But for me, no.
Okay, cool. Here's another common one. Does an agent help with the draft when you hire one? Do you need an agent, Coach Andy, to help you
Okay.
get drafted?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think you got to have the right understanding of what an agent does, and I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. Is that okay? Okay. So going into the perception people have, this is very, very common, is that you get an agent so that they promote you and make calls and try to get you recognized, and that's the wrong perception to have of an agent. Because first of all, there's a lot of people that will call themselves agents or advisors that aren't truly agents and advisors, or they're starting out and they don't have experience, and they'll take anybody. So there's a difference between agent A and agent B, and then there's even lower levels than that. So if agent A is not calling you or emailing you or getting in touch with you, that is a very big indicator early on that you're not a top prospect. It doesn't mean you can't be, but it's saying that's a very good indicator that you're not a top prospect. Because what an agent ultimately, no, not ultimately, what an agent is in business for is to make money. They're not necessarily interested in just representing players. They're in it to make money. So if I go to you, Eric, and you're a fringe player, what agent do you think is coming after you? It's the lower level guy that wants to get a guy, say, yeah, I've got some kids in my stable here, right? But the highest end agents, which there's a handful, or and not a handful of agents, but a handful of companies that have the biggest agencies, they're only looking for, and they start young, and they like around 14ish, 15, and they start knowing who the best of the best is that they hear, and they start attaching themselves, like, presenting their thing to those people. If you're not getting that, it's just that you haven't been recognized as a top player, so they're not interested. They will be later if you are, right? And that's why you'll see later in life kids that were good, and they went with someone that, you know, said, "Oh, I can do this, I can do this," and then they realize, okay, like at the end of the day, I need a better agent. Okay, so that's number one. If they're not getting a couple of the top agencies coming after you, it's like it's because you're not a top prospect. Okay, now their job is not to promote you. How you promote yourself is how you play. That's number one. That's it. That's all. And there's going to be some people that push back and say, yeah, but agents do call. Well, that's their job at that point, but it's not to promote you, right? It's to the hockey. The way you play hockey is your promotion. So, agent or not, you can get drafted, you can sign contracts, whatever. It's up to you, the player. Okay. So, can they help you in the? What was the question? They can help you.
Help with the draft.
Help with the draft. Okay, so let's just say it's the CHL draft. So in the CHL draft, first of all, you're recognized and you're ranked. Now, in our experience, this is what I love about, and we had a discussion as we chose our agent, right? Said, like, I don't want my agent, because a lot of them, like, now if I have an agent that was an ex, like a really, like a big ex NHL player and has a, like, understands that side of it, he can point out things in your game that could help, but to a point, right? So we had our discussion. It was like, okay, I don't need someone to tell my son how to play hockey. Number one, he's got a coach. Number two, he's I don't want, like, information that could be wishy-washy. So what I want the agent for is to take care of the business side if there is any. So in the OHL, how our agent helped us was not promoting. It was like my son would have these interviews, and then I would just, me or my son would let Ian know that this team talked, and then he goes, okay, I'll follow up with them. So he would follow up, and they would say, yeah, we like him, and we if he's in this spot here, we're taking him. It was nothing that Ian said. It has nothing to do with that, because he's not going to say, well, draft him. He has no pull with that, to a point. So what was good for us, upcoming in the draft, we had whatever amount of teams that were saying we're looking at, reported to Ian, because I'm not doing it, reported to Ian that this is the area that we're going to take him in if he's available. And then as the draft got closer, he would call and say, okay, so X team thinks that he can probably slide a couple picks. So the one that they told you that they're going to take him, probably not going to happen. This team, like, this is where they slot him in. So it just gave us some information on an idea. So we didn't. So my son didn't go on draft day, and it didn't really matter because they're going to take him or not take him anyways. But to give it an indication that you don't have to wait too long, or you're going to have to. It's not going to be the greatest day of your life, right? So that was it, and that was valuable to us because we had a pretty good idea of where he was going to get picked in the draft. So that was good, but other than that, you don't actually need one in junior hockey.
Yeah, the parallel I draw is when we talk about like if you play on a top team, you get a few more looks. It's kind of that. It's like it's not the determining factor. Like if you're a top prospect in the OHL draft, the agent might be the difference just from conversations of you being plus or minus 10 picks or plus or minus a round or like something like that. But it's not like the difference of you getting drafted or not.
Yeah.
You know?
No, there is none.
So it's like if you're going to be a late pick, you'll be a late pick. If you have an agent, you'll still be a late pick. You might be a little higher, a little lower. If you have an agent and you're going to be a mid-round pick, you're still going to be a mid-round pick. Instead of going in round 6, maybe you go in round 5 or whatever, just because if you have an agent who's a real agent that actually talks to teams, then those conversations, sometimes just by talking, things can change just from having conversations. Not that they're saying, well, why don't you pick them at this spot or whatever. That's not what they do. And just to solidify that, again, same scout I was talking to the other day, he was mentioning a particular agent that was pushing for a player to be taken in a certain round. And from the scout's perspective with the organization, they're just like, why?
Oh yeah, you were telling me this.
Yeah,
It's
like, why
easy, buddy.
Yeah, like easy. Like, what are you
Yeah.
pushing him so hard
Yeah.
for? It's like that.
Because he's not that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's indicating to us, like, if you're pushing so hard, like maybe there's not that much interest or whatever. If you have to sell them so much to us, you know. So it's quite the opposite. If you get these pushy agents that are calling, it's annoying. It's like, you're bugging me now.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, so the other thing is, like, so once you're drafted, depending on how early or how late, where the agent becomes beneficial to a certain degree is your first contract. And the OHL contract, it's actually pretty standard. So, but so for this is where it was beneficial to us. I don't want to talk to the coach or the general manager, like, have conversations. But on the business side, I don't want to be the guy because maybe I'm a pushover or maybe I'm too pushy. So I want to leave that side.
Yeah, have like a third party negotiator
to the agent, right?
Yeah.
To his agent. So when the contract came, it was like he was a lawyer, so he looked at the contract and said, "Okay, yeah, this is the standard," because it's actually standard. So he just wanted to make sure, and he's seen some contracts where, oh, you could get a little bit more, or whatever, but there's only so much you can get in junior, right? So it was that. Now after that, what could happen is you have to have your head on your shoulders if you do have an agent in junior hockey, because agents, they want to be involved to a certain degree, right? So sometimes they try to solve problems that don't need to be solved. For example, you are maybe not playing, or maybe junior hockey is a funny place, right? Because people go into the CHL and they feel like their kids are the best. Like, that's just the way it is, man. And if you get 3 shifts a period because you're 16 years old, no parent is happy with that, because you're going to just start looking up the line. Well, you played better there. You should have done this and should have got that. So if you go and start talking to your agent about it, and the agent goes, well, I'm going to call them and I'm going to sort this shit out. Well, how many times have you watched the kid play? You don't actually necessarily know, but you can have conversations and just, like, and that's what I was like. If you have a conversation, say, just, yeah, let him know, get a feel for where he's at. But it's like, what's the GM or coach going to say? They say, yeah, we'll give him more ice. No, they're going to say, yeah, he's doing fine. He's developing. It's all the same shit. You got to just figure it out. So, anyways, and then the last thing an agent can do, where they do have an effect, but I don't think it's a positive one necessarily, because I know people say, yeah, agents have some influence. So, if you're the top agency, and let's just say you take whatever CHL team, and you say, okay, so there could be a little bit of games. Like, if you don't trade this guy, or if you don't get him X amount of shifts more, then that's the last player of my stable that's going to be coming to play for you, which is bullshit. But they have a little bit of, they could put a little pressure on that. But the bottom line is, does it help with the draft? No.
Yeah.
No, you have to be a good hockey player. You have to do your part. Yeah. And then after that, they do the business side.
And I know you've talked about that a little bit more at the pro level too, how they can do like package stuff and whatever with NHL guys. So
of course,
yeah,
of course, there's a little bit of if you want this guy's here.
Yeah, right.
Take care of this guy. If you're going to sign this guy for $500,000, I got a guy that'll take the $500,000, or else you don't get this guy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We'll get him signed somewhere else.
Okay, I'm going to package the next two together. This is for a coach. So, first one is, I'm a first-time coach. Squirts, which I don't know what level that is.
That would be like before Adam. So squirts would be in the States is Adam. Like, so I think it's 9 or less.
So that's like U10.
I believe so. I believe so.
Whatever.
It's around there.
Nervous about being, I think the word is responsible for someone's development. You didn't write the word, but I think I remember reading this one. So first time coach, nervous about being responsible for someone's development. Any tips? That's number 1. And together with that, I'm going to wrap it with this one, which is, I'm just getting into a serious coaching role. Any tips for just getting started? So we got the coach first time with squirts. So sounds like young guys, nervous about being responsible for development. And then on the flip side, I'm getting into a serious coaching role. Any tips for just getting started with that?
Yeah. So with the first one with the young players and stuff like that, I would say this: be a good person. Just be a good person. Like your development side of it um, is secondary, because it's fun hockey. You're not going to ruin anybody's career. Um, as far as the hockey side goes. So I would say at that age, make it fun and competitive, and be yourself. Like you don't have to be Joe Hockey Coach. Go find drills. No, you want to be appropriate though, right? So you want to find drills for practices that are fun and skill building, and you're really not going to screw up if they're moving around a lot. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the development side. But what I would say is be yourself and make it not a goof around place, but make it fun for the kids. So it's mostly about fun and encouraging and a great place to be, because what you want your youth as they're playing hockey is to have a really good experience, and then and be a positive influence on them, right? And then if I was to focus on any of the skill stuff, they're still so young. It would be like just a lot of skating and stick handling, competitive games, like do some small area stuff. Uh, Help them pass pucks and stick handle, like that'd be the bulk of your practices. And then in games, like let them play. And if you don't really know, this is the trick, right? If you don't really know what you're doing, don't like, as far as systems, or this is the 8, this is going to the other guy. If you don't really know what you're doing, don't try to pretend, right?
That's so important, man.
Yeah.
People call bullshit so fast.
Yeah.
Like, don't act like you know if you don't know. Just own where your limitations
Yeah.
are to solve the
Man, you see
problem.
it so many times.
Oh
Like someone
God,
coaches a team, and all of a sudden, like you go, they become a different person. Like they know everything about the game, and they're so serious and stuff. And the kids feed off of that, right? They know. So when you're coaching that young team, don't worry about the development. If you do a lot of skating and uh, puck drills and keeping it keeping it fun and at a good pace, you've won. As far as the games go, you're going to get parents that are way too serious about it, and you just got to be who you are. Just got to be who you are, and if you have the ability to be able to teach kids the game, and you can teach them some life lessons, that's good for you. But you don't have to be that. You want to keep it a good place and fun. As far as the person that is taking coaching seriously, what was the tail end of that
so
question?
a more serious coaching role. Just any tips getting started.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Is okay. So if it's more serious, let's say what that means to me is like it's a little bit older. Maybe it's the levels higher. So let's say it's just for shits and giggles. It's a U14 or a U13 AAA, right? I would give the same advice. Like number one, make sure that you're somewhat qualified to coach that level. Meaning, because the kids have to learn how to play a little bit of hockey. It's not just fun anymore. It should be fun, but it's now you got to teach them a little bit of hockey. So know what you're getting into. So like, do you have forechecks and penalty kills and PKs? Like it doesn't have to be what the Detroit Red Wings do, but something so that you can coach them along the way. And then again, don't pretend that you're something that you're not. Just go in there with what you have and do your best. I mean, people are going to judge you no matter what. And but that's what I would say is like be prepared as you can. Don't overthink it, and just be yourself, man. It'll be fine.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that for the if you're coaching an older age group a little bit more serious, even like let's say you're up into a junior level, um, it's just like don't be a wiener about being a coach because the kids that you're coaching, they start to get a little bit of cool guy attitude because they're teenagers going into their 16, 20, and you want to get buy-in, right? So you have to be on the same team as your players to a certain degree. It can't be like a combative relationship or where you're a bullshitter or whatever, because kids are smart enough to see that now. And a lot of times your players are going to be better than you. So they don't, you have to lead by example and get buy in from your team in order to be successful. Because I remember having coaches where I was just like, shut up, because they didn't know what they were talking about, or they're a bullshitter, or they clearly don't do what they're asking me to do. And integrity was maybe not there. The authenticity wasn't really there. So they just kind of seemed like a little bit of a phony. And that just falls apart fast, especially as you get older, more serious players.
Yeah,
You know?
and then the two more things I would say is number one is always explain why you're doing things. We talk about that a lot. So even if you have a really young group, right? If you say, okay, get on the red line, this is as simple as I can get, right? Get on the red line and we're going to go down and back. Well, if you say we're going down and back and they do it 10 times, they possibly think that they're getting like what the hell is this? It's not fun. Now, I'm not saying I believe in this, but now if you say, okay, guys, we're going to get on the red line and we're going to skate down and back 10 times. And we're doing this because we're going to be the best shaped team in the league.
Yeah.
And they go,
Herb
oh, okay.
Brooks.
So, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But okay. So they hear that, oh, we're going to be in the best shaped team in the league. So you could always go back to that. And we're going to do this because skating is the most important. It might be right or wrong. I don't care. But here's why we're doing it. But we're going to do this stationary passing drill. And the kids might seem bored, but we're going to do this because passing is one of the most critical skills in hockey. And if you watch other teams, guys, if you watch hockey games, you'll see that a lot of kids don't have passes. If we can pass the puck better than anybody else, then we're going to be able to win a lot more games. So it's not necessarily right, but it's a reason for them to buy in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
everything that you do should have a why. And I would say that the older that as you get older, it's the exact same thing. I had one more thing about the older group. Oh, yeah. So, and then the other thing is that if you're coaching the older that you get, or not even at any point, you could be like, for me, I have a balance of joking around and having good relationships, but I could be very stern and scary at times, right? So someone can't do exactly what I do because I'm me, right? It works for me most of the time. Someone could come in there and they're like ultra organized and things have like you're an organized guy. So if someone has a puck laying on the ice, I'm not saying you are, but you might freak and say the puck shouldn't be there. So understand the personality you are as a coach and let them know this is how I am and this is what I expect. So you put expectations out there. And if you're a real stern guy, it is what you are. It is what it is. But you put expectations out there so that they're not going, what's wrong with this guy? You know, right? Like I'm a disciplinarian. If you do one thing wrong, or if you make one mistake, or if you don't listen, you're on the. But at least the kids know. But it's you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally, man.
So setting the stage is very important.
Yeah, for sure. Should you leave a team if a coach is bad?
Well, that's a really good question, but it's a really loaded question too.
Mm-hmm.
What does bad mean?
What is bad? Define
what
bad.
does bad mean?
Yeah.
So if a coach is lacking hockey knowledge, and here's the thing, like I when I get this question, I got to think a little bit because not all places are created equal. Like in this area where we live, if you live across the street here, now you become Windsor. If you live across the street, you're Sun County, and there's no choices. You can't. It's not just easy just to leave, right? So, but then if you live in Toronto or Detroit, you can leave at any time. No, I don't know about any time. I know Detroit, you can.
Yeah, you can move around.
There's a lot more freedom, right? So, yeah, here's the thing: is like there's things to learn at every level, right? And I'm not a big fan of just leaving because you don't like something about a coach, because coaches at every level, you go to an OHL game and the coach is always an idiot, doesn't know what he's doing. I guarantee he knows what he's doing, right? Maybe you don't know what you're doing, right? The ice time, your kids should get more ice time. Of course, everybody says the same thing. So bad coach meaning what is important. If he doesn't have a clue and you have an opportunity to go somewhere else, like I get it. I get it. And that's fair enough, but it doesn't mean it's going to change somewhere else. I always say this too. It's like when you're playing youth hockey, what are your expectations from a coach? Because if your expectations is that he's going to be a dialed in best coach ever as far as X's and O's in hockey and motivation and all this stuff, you're probably going to be disappointed, right? So your expectations probably shouldn't be so high. And if you do get someone that's the best coach you could ever have, you just have to be very thankful. So where I would change my mind is that if a coach is actually a really bad person, if they're,
yeah, that's normally the line
yeah,
for me.
Like, is it I don't have to describe what a bad person is. And because everybody's got a different line of what a bad person is anyway. So who am I to determine what you think is bad? But I think if a coach is a bad person and doing harm to the room or the player, that's for a parent to decide. And if it is truly a bad place, then yeah, for sure. If you have the opportunity to go. I want my son or my kids or anybody I train to be in an environment where as much as I can control that, to be in a good positive environment. And positive doesn't mean yeah everybody's great. What it means is that you're learning, and there's maybe some life lessons, and it's just a good experience. So
Yeah. The other thing with that is if it's not like an actual bad situation, then you want your kid to learn some resilience, right?
that's my
Against
point. Yeah.
some and even if you go to another team with a better coach, maybe something else is worse that makes it just as bad. So that's why I'm on the same page with you. Is like be careful about jumping ship as soon as you see something that's bad. So figure out what bad means for you, and I feel like the line is the bad person thing for sure. Um, if your kid has promise or potential, at what age does he need to take it more seriously?
Okay, that's another. It's a good question.
Mhm.
Um, what is promise and what is potential?
Yeah.
That's the question. Is he
To be or not to be?
to be or not to be? That's the
That's the
question.
question.
Yeah, it's yeah. What is promise and potential like? Is he like amazing? Are you talking potential like he's in the age group wherever you're living that he's one of the better ones? So that's the first thing that needs to be defined, and then if you can define that and understand like where do you or the player want to take this, or what are they looking at achieving out of this? So if it's just to have fun, then you don't have to worry about it too much. If it's because you see potential and he sees potential and he does a lot of practicing, a lot of stuff on their own, and he's really dialed into the game, then like whatever age, it doesn't really matter. There's not an age where it's specific. Okay, by 8 you need to be dialed in, or by 14 you have to be dialed in, because there's a lot of kids that never took Jamie Benn. He was a good baseball player, good hockey player. Didn't really think much about hockey. He was actually thought he was going to be a baseball player. Turned out to be a superstar in the NHL. He didn't take it seriously. So there's not really a definitive answer. Sorry, there's not. But like my caveat to that is like if my son is very very interested in piano, play piano. But his happened to be sports, so he was dialed in, and um, he's going to take it as seriously as he wants. It's not up to mom and dad to do that. You know what I mean? They talk about it and stuff. So I don't know if there's a certain age. If it's about making it, like guys make it without being serious, like it's whatever. But I mean, you want to if he is very very keen on it. I mean, his actions are going to indicate that he's serious. I don't think you have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think because it feels like a kind of a blend of two questions. So I think the answer we normally give about when it's appropriate to start taking training more seriously or whatever, we normally throw around like the 13, 14-year-old age group. Like I remember that's when I like started going to the gym now, and that's when I started like taking my on ice stuff more seriously in terms of my ability to pay attention and actually try to learn and those things. So that's kind of the age where you would see it as a parent. Kind of like that 13, 14 is when it kind of starts to matter, because that's when the puberty bug happens. So that's where things start changing, and you kind of see things level out, and you kind of see where your kid is relative to other kids. And also, if you want us to put a number on it, it's normally like the 13, 14, but that's a very crude, because there's all of these exceptions and all
Pretty
these different
general.
circumstances, but that's
Yeah.
about around the time where things will start to look a little bit more serious, right?
You know,
So
I've seen people take it seriously, real serious at 13 and 14, and train a lot and do all those things, and they hit puberty early, and you thought you had yourself a hockey player, but then when it came down to the actually being a good hockey player, and at 16 and all that stuff, they were just not very good anymore. So it didn't really matter. But what matters is that they saw. This is my opinion as a dad. What matters for the kids like that is that they saw something that they were very interested in. They dedicated themselves. That's awesome. That's a life skill, right? As far as being a hockey player, that's a whole different ballgame.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have tryouts in 2 weeks. I plan on shooting pucks with intention every day. Will I be able to make noticeable improvements before tryouts? My shot's already a bit above average, but I want to step it up.
Yeah. Okay. So number one, it's never a bad time to start. It's never a bad time to start to shoot pucks and do stuff like that, and to do it with intention. That's awesome. Will you see a difference if you shoot 2 weeks worth of pucks? You will actually see a little bit of a difference, especially if your technique's pretty good. But like you are going to see a little bit of a difference. But my suggestion with that is don't stop shooting pucks after 2 weeks. What you want to do is it's all about consistency. It's like people that go on diets, are going to lose weight for my vacation, and they crash diet for a little while. Then as soon as the vacation comes, they go and they drink and they eat and they put it all back on. And then you do that every little bit. The key is consistency. So if you love shooting pucks, shoot. Well, even if you don't love shooting pucks, it's a practice that you should be doing as a hockey player, regardless of making a team or not. So yes, you will see results, but more importantly, I'm glad that you made a decision to make a short-term improvement, but the most important thing is to make it long-term, and to do that on a consistent basis. That's what's going to be the key.
Yep. It's like studying for a test.
Yeah.
Your teachers always say that if you do a little homework every day, then you don't really have to study for the test.
Yeah, there's a great book out there. I think I did a podcast on it before. It's called The Slight Edge. And I actually wouldn't mind revisiting it again, because this is what the thing is it's the little habits that you do every day that give you massive results. It's not the one big thing that you do. It's the little things every day. So like, and they're not sexy, and they're not anything that people go, wow, right? It's waking up. It's waking up in the morning and chugging a glass of water. That if you don't do that for a week, or you do it every day for a week, no one will ever notice. But if you're doing it over a period of time, you create a habit that's going to be a lifelong habit. Gives you wake up and you rehydrate yourself, and you got your first piece of energy. It's the decision you make on every meal that you take, right? It's like if you decide to start going out and have burger and fries every day, well, just once, 3 times a week, well, that adds up. It continues to add up. So if you stay consistent on that, it's like putting money away. If you decide, okay, I made $100,000, I'm going to put $100,000 in the bank. It's not the same as taking $100 a week or $200 a week and putting in the bank and saving and collecting interest. It's the little habits that make all the difference in the world, right? It's brushing your teeth not once a month.
Yeah.
It's brushing your teeth once a day, like once or twice a day. It's and those, I know no one wants to hear it necessarily, but it's actually the truth.
Last one. Do CHL teams reach out to players prior to the draft?
I love this question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good one to end on?
Yeah, I was hoping that you'd get to that one.
There you go.
Yeah, do CHL teams reach out to players before the draft? Yes and no. Yes, because they not to every player, right? But they reach out. Okay, so if it comes down to your top end prospect, and they're interested in you. So the higher you are ranked, the more likely you are to get a lot more phone calls, emails, Zoom calls, or person interviews, or come to a game and watch a game. Why do they do that? Because they want to get to know you. They want to see if you're a good fit, and they're doing their homework. Okay, so now the higher prospect that you are, the more likely you're going to get the general manager of the team and scouts talking to you, and they're probably going to reach out once or more. Having said that, there are teams that don't necessarily talk that much. They do a general questionnaire. That's for the top end prospects, but even like there's kids that are may not even get drafted, and there's teams that are going to reach out just to because there's an interest. You might not get drafted, but there's still an interest, and they want to touch base with their prospects to see what kind of kid, see if they're even going to report to the CHL. Yeah. So there's
this mom I mentioned earlier that sent me about questions about the draft. She asked me this question too. And that's kind of what I said was there's not really a formula or a pattern. Sometimes the GM, sometimes it'll be an area scout that interviews you. Sometimes it'll be nobody. Sometimes you'll get a call on draft day saying, hey, we're taking you next round. And then they don't. Like there's right. So there's not really a formula. The further away you get from being a top prospect, the more variance there is, right? So there's not really a one thing. So you don't want to read too much into I talked to this team or I heard this or what, because you never know. Like these teams there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes during the draft that people don't see, obviously. So
don't take it like if no one has called you or got an email and stuff, that is an indication that you're probably not
either way.
Yeah,
it's an indication either way.
And if you get a lot, then it's an indication that you're probably there's a lot of interest.
Yep,
but they do reach out 100%.
Cool. I just thought of this quote off the top of my head to finish up here. I remembered it. It's a Tony Robbins.
Oh, nice.
And it's inspired by the fact that we did a Q&A today.
Yeah.
All about questions.
Yeah.
Quality questions create a quality life.
Yep.
That's a good quote.
It's a really good
Tony
quote.
Robbins. Okay, thanks for the questions, guys. We'll see you next week.